Hello, everybody. My name is Manan. Welcome to the channel again. And today we have here with us, all the way from Oslo, is Jose. Jose has been living in Estonia for 7 years, but it has been a year since he moved to Norway. Today, we're going to talk to Jose about his life in Estonia, before Estonia, and how was the life here when he was living and then what made him leave Estonia finally. So, Jose, welcome. It's really great to have you. And why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more to our viewers?
Sure. Thank you for the welcoming. Yeah, my name is Jose. I'm originally from Malaga in the south of Spain, and I moved to Estonia back in 2014. And then I was living there for more than 7 years, almost eight actually. So yeah, the reason why I went to Estonia was because of work. Then I liked the country. That's why I stayed in there. Yeah. Then last year I decided to move to Norway, try out a new place, and here I am. So,
Mhm. So, before we were chatting, and then you mentioned that you didn't really know about Estonia at all when you first found out about it and when you got a job. So when you first landed in Estonia, what were your impressions for like the first month or two? Like, how did you feel the country was? Was it a challenge? Was it good? What was the good and the bad?
the first impressions was that it was a very quiet place, and also I think I was kind of tricked by the weather when I landed there because it was kind of between spring and summertime, so it was actually nice weather. Then
Yeah.
came and it was totally different story, right? But my first impressions was of quietness in the city. I'm talking about Tallinn, but also that there was quite of a contrast between the touristic part. I mean, all these medieval buildings, all these historical places, and then all the new stuff that was being started to build on Tallinn specifically. So yeah, those were the main impressions at first. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, what in your time that you lived in Estonia did you feel were the biggest challenges that you had to face, like that were really difficult for you?
The biggest challenge I would say definitely was the social challenge in the sense of making real friends. I think nowadays when we talk about friends, it's a very widespread word and
Hmm.
kind of loses the meaning. I mean, I didn't have problem to socialize with coworkers, going to language exchanges, so on. I didn't lack social life in that sense, but to make like a real and meaningful friendship connections, that was hard, and that was something that it kind of frustrated me that when I would make like a real friend, actually some of my best friends I met them during my time in Estonia, and they are some of my best friends ever. But then at some point they left the country, and then it's like you feel a bit empty in that sense because you know that connecting with such kind of people is not that easy.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I so feel you what you say about making friends and then making real friends. Like it's like we use the term friends as like this, like overall thing, but even though it's not like really like there you can't have like real close friends like more than handful of them. Like very, very few people who can be that very close to you. So I feel that. But coming like I want to talk about this a little more, and I want to ask you like, do you feel like it's something related to the culture in Estonia that prevents you from making real friendships? Um, because you have lived in other cultures as well. You've lived in Western Europe. You're now living in Scandinavia. Do you feel that is it something specific about Estonia that prevents you having these, like real connections as friends? Or is it more something that you say globally, technologically, that is happening all over the world?
I think it's partially yes and partially no.
Hmm.
Because now living in Norway, I kind of experience some of the similar things. For example, in Spain, we are very easygoing. We can talk with anyone on the street. You can just go to a supermarket and on the queue, you can engage in a conversation. But
Absolutely, yeah. Mm.
that doesn't mean that you are gonna become a friend with that
Of
person.
course, yeah.
It's just a small talk that is happening because of the situation where you are, right? Um, then my perspective is that I think there is a cultural aspect, but also, for example, now living in Norway, I realize one of the same things that I was experiencing in Estonia, and is that local people normally they already have their own social circles.
Hmm. Yeah, of
Since
course.
they are growing up, they are making already their friends. This applies to Estonians, Norwegians, probably Swedish, Finnish people. Then they don't need to expand their social circle. They don't need to accept new members to that social circle. They already have friends. They already have their plans on the weekend, so they don't need to invite you for a beer on a Saturday, right? So sometimes it's more us, the expats, who try to push those situations, who try to engage the locals to
Hmm.
with us, the foreigners, right? So I think that is kind of common in from experiences in Estonia, in Netherlands, and also in Norway. But I do feel a difference in the sense that, for example, if we compare the Estonian society and the Norwegian society, it's so different.
Hmm.
Norwegian society is incredibly multicultural. Like you will find people from any parts of the world, from any ethnicity. And I'm also talking about Norwegians. Like you will see Asian Norwegians, Black Norwegians, Arabic Norwegians, Indian Norwegians, anything. But in Estonia, since it's such a small place and they haven't been so much exposed to globalism, then they're still they're not so open in that sense. They're a bit more like close. So
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. It's been um, like whenever actually, I'm from Pakistan, and like Norway has one of the biggest populations of Pakistanis there. Like it's like so many Pakistanis there, and you go there, and then they're like Pakistani, look like me, everything's like me, and then they are speaking like fluent Norwegian, and you feel like, oh, yeah. So that's sort of like blows your mind, and then I think in terms of everything like that, you're right that it's very very multicultural. Like if it's not a surprise that if a person like me is speaking Norwegian, right?
right.
But here, I think in Estonia, if a person like me is speaking fluent Estonian, that is still surprising very much, like for people who are for people who
Yeah,
are here.
I
Um,
felt they were easy to impress actually when
hmm,
talking Estonia and just say "Tere, kuidas läheb, kui concorras." That was wow, you speak Estonian so well. And it's just nothing.
yeah, yeah, I feel the same, and I always say to my friends and people who are coming here that even if you're coming for a month, learn like 10 words and that will be enough. Like just learn 10 words and you can impress many people.
Right.
Um, but let's talk about, like we talked about, a social aspect of challenges you hear. But uh, let's talk a little bit more about any other challenges. For example, work-wise, financial inflation, because I've talked to a few people uh, similar to you who have left Estonia. And one of the things that keeps popping up is this cost of living versus wages and this inflation. Have you felt something like that? Is this part of the reason why you left Estonia or not?
It's not one of the reasons, to be honest, but I did feel that in the last year, especially. So I'm talking basically since the pandemic started in 2020, I think. So I did feel the increase of prices. I mean, from my perspective, being a worker in the IT industry, which probably has some of the largest salaries in Estonia, then it didn't feel so critical. I mean, of course, you will go to supermarket and then you will feel like some products were increasing the prices, or maybe even your landlord could ask for a little bit of a raise in the monthly payment. But it was not a very drastical change for me in that sense.
Hmm.
But I do know that other types of work in Estonia could not cope with such increases, and then they might probably struggle a lot in that
Yeah.
sense. But for me, it was not really one of the reasons. No.
Hmm. Yeah, understood, and I get that. So why, after 7 years, did you eventually decide to leave Estonia?
Yeah, the reason was that mainly I felt like Estonia. didn't have anything else to offer me. I had been there for so many years. I had been to so many places, done so much activities, done so much experiences. So there was a moment when I basically was not working because the work ended in the company where I was back then. And then also in the social aspect, I didn't feel like I had any real friends or any person that would be attaching me to Estonia. So I felt like it was the right moment. I didn't really feel encouraged to like find a new job in Estonia, get used to a new company environment, try to meet new people in that new company environment. Or I felt like I wanted to do that, but in another country to start from zero, pretty much.
I get that. I understood. But okay, so if I say like, what would made you stay in what would have made you stay in Estonia, and I say that let's say you had a bunch of like a few very close friends, um, would that have been something that had made you stay in Estonia? Would that have been a factor?
Mm, maybe,
Hmm.
but from all the years that I was living there, there was two reasons that made me stay so much. Reason number one was work stability. Reason number two was a relationship.
Hmm.
So if you have those two, then you can feel very comfy in there. You can have your comfort zone. You have a good job. You have a partner, a girlfriend, wife, whatever, and then you basically have almost everything covered. You might have some friends, maybe not. That's more depending on the person.
Hmm.
But having those two pillars that I was mentioning, I think that was for me enough to stay in Estonia. But
Hmm.
when I took the decision to leave, I didn't have those two pillars.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, yeah, that's one of the many reasons that people either have like work here that keeps them, and in addition they have like an Estonian partner or somebody from here, and then that is sort of something that like binds them to this to Estonia.
Hmm.
That's that's what I feel, what I've from what I've talked to so many other people. Um, but that's really good. I mean, Jose, how is life in Oslo, Norway? How do you feel the difference?
I feel like Oslo has a more vibrant atmosphere. It's one of the things I lacked in Estonia. For example, I really like cultural events. I love going to concerts. And in Estonia, it was hard to find such kind of cultural offer. I mean, of course, things improve a long time, and I think maybe nowadays in Estonia you could find maybe more international artists going to perform there and so on. But still, it was very limited. Even when I was living there, sometimes I would just go on a trip to Sweden or to Finland just to see some concert or anything because in Estonia it was a bit boring at times. Um, so yeah, I feel like that's one of the biggest differences. There's much more cultural offer, and in general, there's much more to do. In Tallinn, for example, in summertime when the weather is nice and people are outside and they are happy and they are smiling and everything, but still, I don't feel like you have so many options of things to do in the city. You can go to Telescape, have a beer. You can go maybe to Noblesneri, okay? You can go to Pirita or any of the beaches and hang out there. But in Norway specifically, which is where I live now in Oslo, there's much more to do. You have forest, just take the subway, go to a forest or to a lake. You have much more different environment, so to say, and it's kind of a more like a European capital lifestyle. Uh, Tallinn, in the end, it felt so small that there was not that many new things that would be encouraging you to try them. So it kind of felt like every time going to the same place, to the same bar,
Hmm.
and doing the same activity. It was a bit repetitive in that sense. So yeah, that's probably the thing that I appreciate the most now being here. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. What about the cost of living? Because Norway is, of course, really, really expensive place. It's a really expensive place. But I guess the income that you earn is, of course, proportionally high. So if you compare, like, for example, the disposable income, the final income that you get after cutting out all the expenses, compared to Estonia versus Oslo, do you feel that you get more or do you get less?
Well, definitely Norway is very expensive.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good salary, then it can be a bit tricky. Fortunately, it's not my case. I would say my salary is quite balanced. Nevertheless, I think it's also a matter that depends on the person because some people, for example, they like to go to restaurants often. Some people like to go party every weekend. You can imagine how much the expenses can get.
Hmm.
When you're paying minimum 10 euros for a beer in Oslo, then you can
Yeah,
imagine, right?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
um, for example, in my case, I'm not that much into nightlife, so I don't have such expenses. It really depends on the person and in your lifestyle. But comparing to Estonia, when I was living there, I felt like the balance between salary and cost of expenses was quite okay because I think actually the hardest point of the inflation actually happened after I left the country because it has been maybe from
yeah.
mid 22 right till now when the
Yeah,
price skyrocketed, right?
yeah,
So I didn't feel so affected by that, but yeah, maybe that was my sensation being a worker in the IT field. Maybe people from other industries they
yeah.
could
Hmm.
face a bit of more severe problems coping with
Hmm.
inflation.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. Because the other industries were hit quite hard. Um, but thank you so much, Jose. It was really nice talking to you. Do you have any message, anything that you'd like to shout out? Maybe you have a Facebook or like a LinkedIn profile or anything you would like people to see or to know more about you or have a look if there is anything you would like to say.
I would only like to say that for everyone who takes a look at this, give a chance to Estonia. It's not a country for everyone, I would say, but it's really worth it. I
Hmm.
think the life is there is good. It's safe. You have a lot of wonderful things, an incredible nature. People are great. You just need to get adapted to them and find your way through
Hmm.
their personality. But yeah, I think it's a country that deserves in general a bit of more recognition.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I talk about Estonia, in Spain, in Norway, people don't know really anything about it or very, very little. And I think it's a bit unfair. I think it's a country that has grown so much. They have developed so many cool things, like the online bureaucracy, for example. That's amazing. And yeah, they deserve a bit of a more prominent place in the European landscape. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah,
give a chance to Estonia. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, that's great. That's great to hear, Jose. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time, and thanks to everybody for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.
All right.